Welcome one and all to another edition of the Defo Show with Lubie here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network, brought to you in part by Water Cleanup of Florida. Life's good. Life's great. We never want to think of anything negative, right? I love putting out positive energy because to me, you put it out, you'll get it back. But what I found is things still happen that we're not the biggest fans of. However, we don't have to think of it negatively. If we have the right people around us, the right people to go to, even the things we're not hoping to have happen still can be handled swiftly and easily and not even get in our way as we keep moving toward our version of a success. Water Cleanup of Florida will do that for you with any water, fire, mold damage. They are a one-stop shop with licensed contractors. They can come out, check the situation, assess it, and then fix it for you. So you don't have to go find someone else to handle any damage at your home. No worries. Whether you have an insurance claim already or even if you don't, they will come out and fix it for you so you don't have to stress out. You don't have to worry, because that's my problem. When something happens at the house, I handle a lot of it. My wife is ridiculously busy. I take that responsibility, and I have anxiety issues. So when anything goes wrong, I'm like, oh no. What's cool about Water Cleanup of Florida, it's nothing going wrong, right? Things happen. It's a home. Well, they'll take care of it like that. And you can reach out to them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to set up an appointment and to have them come out and check out and fix your issues. 954-579-0356. They can be reached there or WCUFL.com. And if you mention 5 Reasons or Lubie, or 5 Reasons and Lubie, you will receive a free inspection during business hours. You can also check them out on the socials on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at Water Cleanup FL, with over 65 5-star reviews on Google, with over 6 years of experience. Michael, Robert, and their team will make sure any issues at your home are not that. Water Cleanup of Florida, we clean up your schmutz. What has been schmutzy the last couple of decades, but isn't anymore. Those Florida Panthers, they were young. They're coming. Young. They're coming. Well, last year they exploded onto the scene, made the playoffs, and almost knocked off the eventual, now back-to-back defending champion Tampa Bay Lightning. This season, they've jumped out the gate, been number 1 in the East pretty much the entire year. Florida Panthers, we talk a lot about them as they try to join the Heat, the Dolphins, and the Marlins as champions, and the Canes as champions in South Florida. Craig Minervini, Bally Sports Florida, Florida Panthers, and Miami Marlins host, analyst, joins us today, the Defo Show with Lubie, on the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
A compliment from Harvey Fialkoff. He says that you, hands down, do the best Marv Albert
Goldie
of
does a good
anybody
Marv
in South Florida.
Well,
Thank us as Marv Albert. That would be great.
Well, I have only one answer to that, and it is yes. It has always been a pleasure to be at either the 7th Avenue end to the left of Ed Jockerman or the 8th Avenue end to the right of Billy Smith or Willis Reed, who may come back. You know, Defo and Lubie, Willis did come back in a heroic fashion, but once I hang it up, that will be it. Now back to Chuck and Sue.
Excellent job there as Marv Albert. Craig Minervini.
Enjoy your trip to work with lots of laughs thanks to Defo and Lubie. Now on the Defo Show.
Welcome one and all to the Defo Show with Lubie. No Defo, just Lubie, and the man that makes Defo and I look bad each and every time because we seem to age rapidly. He seems to be doing the Benjamin Button thing. He's going backwards. The one and only Craig Minervini joins me today here on this Tuesday morning. Craig, appreciate your time. I won't make you, because there's no Defo. He makes you sit here and do your stand-up act and do every impression you know.
No stand-up.
Man, I'm not going to make you do any impressions, sir, but thank you for joining me this morning. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, and very refreshing, actually, to not have Defo.
I don't really get that often, so I'll take it, especially with his voice and that laugh. The South Florida sports scene, as we've talked about a lot with you, is amazing right now, and it's been, for all of our teams, it's been rough, and you are involved with 2 of them, with Bally Sports Florida, the Panthers, and the Marlins. But you've been down here a long time. You've been on the different news networks. You've done sports. So you've covered all the teams and been involved with all of them. So we all are very smiling a lot these days, which we haven't lately. And the team that Defo and I, as you know, have a bet on in the upcoming first round with a man you know We all know down here well. We love him, even though we've now found out been a curmudgeon for 30 years. The one and only Mike Mayo, he's sort of back down on his bet because, as you can see, the Panthers have not only not slowed down, it's like they heard our bet and like, okay, screw you, Mayo. They're just annihilating the competition, whether it's coming back, whether it's having big leads, whether the goaltending, which sort of was in for a second there, has gotten strong again, defensively, offensively. Ekblad's now working on getting back too, just to scare people more. And we asked Jessica Blaylock this, and I haven't asked you this, being around this team for so long and finding the good and the bad, now it's just good everywhere. How has it been being involved with this team this year after all that you've, quote-unquote, gone through?
I told you last time that I was on your show, which is probably maybe a month ago or so. I said, I love your bet. I'll take it with Mayo as well.
Yes.
Because I told you that. I think Mayo is, thinking about when he used to cover for the Sentinel 65 years ago instead of where the team is right now. And that is, they have every guy, if you look up and down the line, it really is amazing, is having a career year. And that's when things are incredibly special. Doesn't mean they're going to walk through the playoffs. They're going to have a tough matchup, be it Washington, Pittsburgh, Boston. Could even be Tampa slipping back. Looks like it's going to be one of those four teams. But every team is going to finish with 100 points. That has never happened before in the NHL. Never. Not in this system since they've had the 8 teams. The West has had 7 a few times. So what that means is no matter who you catch,
it's not easy.
There's going to be some jockeying in the final week. You're going to catch a good team. But having said that, it's been great, Lubie, especially, you're right. I mean, I was at the original draft. I went up there on an assignment. I was in Quebec City. So for me, it's very special. The game's been close to me for, since I was a little kid, and to have a good team here. But I would say this, more importantly, for the sport of hockey to grow in South Florida, we as a group, sports fans, we need a run from the Panthers to grab these fans that haven't paid attention to hockey and haven't given it a look, because they're going to love it. There's nothing like playoff hockey. So I think there's an opportunity here that you saw in Tampa. They have grabbed that market. Maybe they grab it here.
Well, and it's sort of annoying in a sense, because the Panthers finally are not only, it's not that they're good. They've been that the last year or so. They're great. They are, when I turned on anything that has to do with hockey, National Hockey Channel, they are one of the first 2 teams. It's Avalanche Panthers. Their odds are up there when it comes to Vegas. They are a prominent team when it comes to this sport, and they're crossing over into just conversation about sports. So it's annoying. They're finally here, and their conference, it's them, and then it's them, the Avalanche, and then the next 7 best teams are all in the East. So it's like, of course. So Mayo's not totally wrong, because we know hockey can be a crapshoot. Home ice only matters so much. So he's not wrong, actually, this year in the sense that, be it Penguins, Caps, both still have 2 of the bigger names in the sport. But to me, what the Lightning series did for them, which we've seen in the NBA so often, is the young team coming up has to have that tough fight and show it. Well, they had it, right? They faced the defending champion, now twice defending champion. Many people call it the toughest series they faced the entire playoffs. It was a freaking war. I remember talking to people in the streets, in the restaurants, about the series, which doesn't happen often with the Panthers.
No.
And it was the kind of thing, to me, which is why I'm so confident about them making a run this year. They got that, okay, we didn't beat the Lightning, but we gave them a tough run. We're now better, veteran, have that experience, and added veterans, which you've never seen the Panthers really do. That's why I'm so confident, because even when they had that quote-unquote 4-game skid, like, they came back and have now won a ton in a row and just playing great. So it was like this team, whatever the issues have been this year, they just take it and run right through it, to the point where I'm just like stoked for the playoffs this year.
Yeah, they had a skid in December, and then that skid you're talking about.
Yeah. And
then ever since then, they've been incredible. They did have a very tough schedule to start the season, and they got through that. And then in the latter part, it's actually been a lot easier, the teams that they played. But they're not just beating them. They are mowing down teams that are not in the playoff picture. And so they're going to have to rev that back up really quickly, because when the playoffs start, obviously you're going to catch a really good team. But I'm not concerned about that. I think you made a point last year that some of these guys went through this playoff war, if you will, and now they're even better this year with the additions they've had on this hockey team. So it's going to be fun. I think you also found that Spencer Knight's had a good second half. That might be important. Goldie gets hurt. Bob has a rough game. To me, the $64,000 question is, what's the hockey going to look like? Is it going to be shinny, crazy, wacky, our chaos is better than your chaos, 6-4? Or is it going to be more what you've seen in the past, which is more button-down playoff hockey? That'll be a good conversation going into the playoffs, which starts in a week.
Talking with Craig Minervini, Bally Sports Florida, Panthers and Marlins host analyst here with us, the Defo Show. And that's the thing. Let's say Mayo's on with us, right? Nothing's always roses. We get it. The net mining did have a spurt there, right? Okay, but my thing is, and it's what I'm curious to ask you to get into real hockey talk, which I'm sure people are running to the Defo Show for. But it's the one thing that is a question, right? Because Spencer Knight has played really well. Bobrovsky had the dip, but has played well since. We saw them get down, was like 4 or 5 goals, take out Bobrovsky, put in Knight, and of course this offense is literally record-breaking, so they didn't bat an eye. They ended up winning the game with Knight, and then Bobrovsky came back in and played well after that. What is the quote-unquote leash, right? Do you think in the playoffs, from what you know being around this team, they've been sort of loose with it? If Bobrovsky's a little off, they don't just take him out right away. He's not a young dude. They have a lot of money in him. He has playoff experience. Do you think that changes in the playoffs? Or do you see them just keep rolling with Bob until, it looks dire?
What it reminds me, there's some people like in life that like a really long layover. You're going somewhere and you want to wait forever. And most people don't like that. You're going on a flight, right?
Yeah.
But for most people, your layover, your short layover in the playoffs.
Yes.
Who likes a long layover?
My wife does.
My question.
You and I were talking about it before. My wife randomly loves it, which is because she's a psychopath. But most humans want to get, if you have a layover, you want it to just go from plane to plane.
Look, you don't have, the point is not a knock against your wife who likes these ridiculous long layovers, but you don't have the luxury of time in the playoffs. Yeah. So these are short series. These are quick trips.
Yep.
And so I would think that you have to be a little bit on the shorter side. And that's not to say, I'm not saying Bob can't run. He's won this before in terms of going deep into the playoffs. He's playoff proven. I think he's going to be fine, to be honest with you. But usually if there is somebody who's hot, a team can win totally on a hot goalie and get a couple of timely goals and win a series. And so that remains to be seen as a Panther. We saw he had a great first half, but he's been okay in the second half, and we're saying that he's really had an excellent season. Yeah. Spencer Knight's good enough to win you as well, so it's a luxury for the Panthers. But no, I don't think you lose a couple of games giving up 5 or 6. Yeah, I think you probably go to your other guy. The question is, when do you go back to Bob? I think they're going to be fine in net. I don't think they're losing because of the goaltending. I think it's going to be just one of those things where can they keep this incredible pace up? And if they do, I think they're going to have a pretty good run in the playoffs. Hopefully to get to the final. Okay,
so the only other question, it's again not a question, you use the word luxury, and it's funny to me to use the term luxury for a guy that, until he got hurt, was going to win, was considered the best defensive player in hockey last year. But with or without Aaron Ekblad, they've just steamrolled. He's now coming back, and they played with him enough where it's not like an Oladipo in the Heat situation, right? Like, he's a guy that's an integral part with this unit, but you've seen them play well without him as well. How little do you see of Ekblad as the playoffs get here? And what is the Panthers, from what you know, their plan to work him back into it, and where we see him going and them going with him?
I mean, he's been skating, so I think the only thing that is Ben Sherratt, Robert Haig, or the two defensemen that were picked up since the injury. They'll be, depending on what they do with the matchups and where he goes, does he go back to Uyghur? Or does he mix in as somebody else? There'll be maybe a little of that because you're throwing one more guy in and one guy's coming out. Also gives you some more depth on the back end of the blue line for your defenseman. Guy gets nicked up in the playoffs. It happens. You want that 7th or 8th guy. The Panthers have this, not only among their defensemen, Lubie, but also the forwards. There's going to be 2 or 3 guys who can be very upset who can make an argument that they should be in the lineup, and it won't be, because you can only put 18 skaters in there. So it's going to be a big look. You bring Aaron Ekblad, an all-star defenseman, as you mentioned, in the Norris conversation this year. Potentially, if he played the full year, he might have won it.
Last year.
I think it's 15 goals as is and almost 60 points, having played what looks like could be a 3/4 of a season. So huge difference for the Panthers. The only thing we haven't seen is with some of the new players they've got, what does it look like altogether? I can only imagine it's going to look better.
It's going to be scary. Last couple of things here with one and only Craig Minervini at Craig Minervini on Twitter, Bally Sports Florida, Marlins and Panthers. Talking about the Marlins, we are always high on the Marlins. Not everyone follows us. The first series didn't go so well. Being out west didn't go so great. Then they took on those interdivision Phillies and played tremendous. Been a little up and down. But the one thing that we were all excited about going into the year that has proven true so far as the starting pitching has been amazing. And that's still without a guy like Sixto, who, whenever he comes in, Cabrera and Mayer, who's lighting it up in the minors and did it in spring training. They made moves with hitting. It's not like they're not trying to bolster up the lineup. And we've seen Sanchez and we've seen Jazz come out and hit well and show us what hopefully the future can be. I don't know if you're around the club as much yet. You're still doing the Panther thing, but you follow them. You do some stuff with the Marlins.
I've been around them. Yeah.
What do you see trying to ignite this lineup? Because it's not like the years past. Like, people are ho-humming, well, the lineup. And my dad complains to me every day. I'm like, Dad, they signed guys. Like, Soler was the freaking World Series MVP. Like, it was a huge move getting him. He just has started slow. Like, what are some of the things Mattingly and the staff has talked about or has tried to do? Because now without the pitcher there with the DH, you put Jazz in the back, at the front. They're working it around. What are some of the things you've heard them talk about in trying to wake up what could be a potent lineup?
I really do think in this case, it's just a case of time. And unlike the short layover, you do have a long layover in baseball.
Yeah.
But having said that, you don't want to get too far behind. The Mets got off to an incredible start, and you don't want. There's an extra team in the playoffs this year, so that's not out of the question. But you don't want to let time go. I think what we're going to see here is a little bit of an evolution. When you bring new faces in, you kind of try to figure out A, where they belong, and B, get them to adapt it to where they're going, and also the manager to get used to what he's got here to decide on the lineup that they want to use going forward. Lineups change all the time, but this one's been different because they've gone power up top and not your typical table setter. And a lot of teams, Lubie, have done this.
Yeah.
Maybe head-scratchingly so to your father and me and a lot of no, seriously, a lot of fans
confusing.
like,
you're confusing.
What's going on here?
Yeah.
But the analytics, the people who look at the numbers, we saw Stanton get moved up in the lineup, Power, Judge, not 4 or 5, but maybe in the top 2, which is unusual because that never happened when we were growing up. So it's we got to get used to it. And I think that the Marlins lineups sort of got to evolve. And then, at some point you can settle in. All right, this works best. We'll see. I hope this works with putting Soler up top, or if he's out, putting Garcia or Sanchez or somebody. Personally, I kind of like it the other way. Put a Miggy, Jazz, and then your meat of the order. But that's old school, and I'm old.
You're not old.
But we'll see how it goes. It's been a work in progress. You're right, though. Talent-wise, there's no reason why they shouldn't score.
Well, and they've
got good enough talent, and it's deep.
Well, and what's interesting, and it's why the division's insane, because everyone's went and spent money, including the Marlins. But the thing, and this old adage when it comes to, like, basketball, football, defense wins championships. It worked for the Marlins in 2003. Derek Lee's defense and Pudge's defense was a big part of them winning a championship. But pitching was always the real adage when it came to baseball. Yeah, we've changed things where offense, we want the home run, and we want, we don't care about strikeouts and offense. But the fact that they have pitching wise right now 5 guys that any single day can be dominant, and then they have 2 or 3 guys just sitting around, sooner than later going to come up. Is why I have this sort of confidence that they're not going to be out of it at any point, because their pitching is what Derek Jeter and before he left Denbo have really tried to do. It's said because years ago they had all these young studs, but they didn't have pitching. Now it's the opposite. They can go like 7 or 8 deep with guys that could be 1, 2s, or 3s on most rotations. When you get to a Hernandez and Lopez and then Rogers and Alcantara, like, it's scary what they can do there. To me, it's like, okay, and they're young guys and they're figuring it out. I think the bats will come around. The fact that you have pitching, and it's the best pitching in the division and one of the best rotations, even with what the Braves have in baseball, it gives you, I don't know about a luxury, but it gives you a little bit of, okay, look, if the hitting catches up at all, this team will be scary because the pitching is scary.
I agree with you. I really do. You have to pitch to even have a shot. And on top of that, I think their bullpen is pretty good.
It's better than
although
people thought.
Bender has struggled a little bit on closing some games out late in ball games. So early in the season here, he's got, lights out stuff. Dylan Floro will be back as well. But overall, the bullpen is not walking guys. A couple of years ago, I think they led the league. The Marlins staff led the league in walks, and you just can't get free passes, especially in this tough NL East. They've kind of chopped down on that. They've been among the better teams last year. So far this year, early in the year, not giving free passes up. So, to me, the pitching is winning. Yeah, they're a winning staff. They've got a good bullpen. They got to score some runs, and they should be able to score some runs. And they're playing some tough teams, but I'm with you. I think this team should be at the very least competitive, and maybe makes a run at one of those playoff spots. But that now we're talking about, okay, on paper they look pretty good. They got to gel as a unit. We could talk all we want, but these guys some of them making some good change. The Marlins spent some money on these outfielders. Yep. They've got some guys who've come back, like Brian Anderson. You need a good year from, and Miggy Rowe do his thing, and Jazz looks good. Stallings got to pick it up offensively. He's been very good defensively, and I think you got a pretty good team.
This is the Defo Show with Lubie here. Finishing up with one and only Craig Minervini. Okay, just bouncing back to the Panthers one more time. Not a plea, because what is cool, and in the past, Defo and I have sort of taken liberties with the crowds. The one thing I'll say, maybe you said it, not everyone's following them. The crowds have been ridiculous. They're finally getting people in there to follow this exciting team. Just how good is this team, right? Is it expectation-wise? Because they've been very humble. They're taking everyone seriously, but they also have this sort of smirk like, we know what we are. What do you see, and what are you feeling from this team? Yeah, we want to get past the first round. That's what our bet is with Mayo. But to me, it feels like the sky is the limit, and this team feels like that as well. And the expectations aren't, well, we haven't won a series in 20 years, so that's enough. To me, if they just get past the first round and then lose, it feels like they'd be highly disappointed as a team. Like,
I agree.
What are you getting from them, and what is the idea around this club?
Here's the number one. Here's the word I think of. I don't know if anybody said this, but I think of this word with this team: unselfish.
That's what it feels like.
I've never seen a team pass more than this team. And I watched a lot of good teams, including the Flying Frenchmen in the 70s that were dominant. And the Islanders and my Ranger teams when I was a big fan of the Rangers growing up, when Defo was selling popcorn for Harry M. Stephen at the Garden and Chase Stadium. So this team, almost to a fault, they find the guy who's open to find the back of the net. And what you have here is cohesion. You've got a team. How many times I've heard more about love here than I have on Dr. Ruth's show back in the day. I mean, it's unbelievable. Yeah. I love these. They love each. It's incredible. So I think you got a very, very tight unit on this club, and it carries over to the game where it's not about me scoring even an empty netter, but I want to set up you, Lubie, so you can get your 20th goal of the year, or 30th goal, or 10th goal. It's that kind of thing, and that goes a long way. But you could say all you want. Everything looks good on paper, and on the ice. You still got to get through this playoff thing, and in the NHL, we could keep saying it. A lot of fans out. It's as tough as it gets. There's no harder thing to win. You got to win 16 games to get there. First, you got to win 4. And as Bill Zito keeps saying, all we have done is won 2 playoff games. Yep. That's it. Yep. Like you do in baseball. You show to the outfielder, 2. Yep. And until they win more, that's their accomplishment. And yes, I agree with you. If they don't even get to the Stanley Cup final, I think they'll be disappointed. And hopefully they can take the experience from last year and take it to a deep run. We need it. We need it down here. Hockey's a great sport. The only way they're going to connect with the people here and get the cakes with rats on it at Publix again and banners all over the place is by winning.
I remember 97 or 96, 97 season. It was magical. I had followed hockey being from here, from the tertiary, right? Like you would see it on SportsCenter, and then I'd watch the playoffs. And I remember that Rangers run versus the Canucks, and I remember the dominant Red Wings and the Avalanche, who were that dominant. Right. But that run down here, it was as magical as any Dolphins, any Canes, any Marlins, anything we've had, any Heat, anything we've had. People around South Florida embraced it.
Yes.
So
I know.
Whatever the bad is of South Florida as a fan base, and people around the world and the country love to make fun of us. When you win, we support you harder than anyone. So I'm with you there.
I know.
And I'm super stoked for it.
It actually gives you goosebumps to think
I
about
actually
it.
get
It
it
gives
right
right now. Like I do have it
I
when
get
you
it
talk
too.
about that, because you're right. And we've seen the crowd start to galvanize, as you mentioned,
Yep.
at the games. They have a very big building. It's not an easy building to fill. Miami Arena was filled every night,
Yeah.
but you only had 14,800 there. And the Panthers were exciting and right in the mix.
Yeah.
This is a return to that era with a different team, though. Instead of pluggers and guys who didn't want to be played on other teams, this is a team of stars, superstars, and then stars, and then some pluggers that could have fit very nicely on that 95, 96 era team too. So I agree with you. I think if they win, everybody's going to get into it, and like you as a young fan, all of a sudden say, "Wow, what have I been missing here? This is great.
Yep.
This is great sports theater, as good as anything I've ever seen." And that's what the hockey playoffs can really represent for South Florida.
Mini Man, we love you again. Bally Sports Florida's own Panthers, Miami Marlins host at Craig Minervini on Twitter. He's the best when it comes to your Panthers and your Marlins. We love you, sir. Thank you for joining me, and we will hopefully talk to you a lot as the Panthers make a deep run into the upcoming playoffs.
Absolutely. And if Defo can't make it, that's fine with me.
I'll pass it along. Thanks, Mini Man. Appreciate it. The one and only Craig Minervini joining me here today on the Defo Show with Lubie. Again, as we say each and every day, you can check us out on 5 Reasons Sports with our South Florida content. We do an exclusive content podcast, Believe Network. And each and every day, just Google us in the morning, The Defo Show. For the absent Defo, I am Mike Lubitz. Check you out tomorrow with a Kicking It Old School Wednesday with Tony Segredo. Thank you to Texas Roadhouse and Catholic Health Services on the Defo Show with Lubie. Thanks for joining in. Thank you again to Craig Minervini. We'll check you out tomorrow.
Let's go to eat a damn snack.
Look what they done to my show.
Thank you for checking us out on another edition of the Defo Show with Lubie right here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Yes, I know we want our Heat coverage. We love the Dolphins. We grew up with them. Even the Canes, the Panthers. Who cares? They've been the number 1 seed in the East the entire year. I've been right around the top of the NHL the entire year. And they're not. It's not just they're an upstart. Like 96, 97 was a great run. I enjoyed it. But it was a lot of guys most people hadn't heard of. That's not the case with the Panthers. Like Ekblad, Barkov, Huberdeau are 3 of the top 15 or 20 players in all of hockey. Barkov, Bobrovsky, for whatever he's done with the Panthers. Hell, Columbus get to a really deep run, knocking off then the number 1 seeded overall, Tampa Bay Lightning. This team's loaded, and they go and add Giroux, and they go and add all these guys just to keep winning. I get it. South Florida's not prime hockey area. 1. 2, the hockey team we've had hasn't won in a long time. But they're playing really well. And they're fun. Yeah, hockey, much like soccer, there's not a lot of scoring. It's not the case with this team. Like, they score the most goals for a team in the last, 25 years in the NHL. They are fun. And if they get to overtime, they are scary. They are, they'll win games in, seconds. That's how good they are. This team is just a lot of fun. And hockey, Minervini's right. We don't talk a lot about hockey down here, but the playoffs are insane. So, Florida Panthers, we are behind you. Miami Marlins, we're always behind you. Hopefully the Miami Marlins pick things up. Bally Sports Florida, Craig Minervini, thank you for joining us today. You can always check out us each morning, 7 to 9. Just Google The Defo Show, DEFO, and our exclusive content podcast, Believe.com. Search After Hours on the Believe Network. And, of course, each and every day, our South Florida content right here, The Defo Show with Lubie on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in the Plantation location, because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. First of all, they're not only open for delivery and pickup. All you have to do is go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both pickup and free delivery. Their hours have changed a little bit. Monday through Thursday from 3:30 to 10, and Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 11:30 to 10. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers, Raw Bar and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you always feel right at home.